goaltending, I think, is the biggest edge the Jets have in this series. But when it comes to star power, when it comes to guys who are game breakers, I think the Jets have a real advantage in that regard.
Well, we are fast approaching the date, August 1st. It is the Calgary Flames versus the Winnipeg Jets, an all-Canadian matchup, and it should be a fun one. And here to talk a little bit about that now is Sean Reynolds. Sean, I know that it's an issue for a lot of teams is making sure that they're prepared and that they're ready to go come August 1st, considering the long layoff. But what have the Jets been doing to make sure that when that day hits, they're going full speed?
Yeah, it's a weird situation, and I think kind of every coach, every team is making it up as they go along. The Jets' approach, I think, has been a little bit slower out of the gates than everybody else. Their first week really was, a lot of just skating and handling the puck. They're doing drills. They didn't have any defenders, so you got a direct line to the net. There's not a lot of competition involved in the whole thing, but the purpose, I guess, of what they're trying to achieve is coming out of, such a long layoff where a third of their guys didn't have access to ice. The worry about injury was so huge, and they're really trying to get through camp without losing guys to injury. They've done a really good job of that so far, but what that leaves is this team going to be ready to fire on all cylinders when it's time? Are they going to be up to a competitive level? And essentially what we were hearing from the Jets was later this week is when they were going to start trying to build that battle, build that competition into their game. Feels like they're cutting it a little bit close. If you're starting a week or 10 days out from win or go home games and you're saying, now we're going to start getting competitive, seems like it's a little bit of a tight window, but I mean, that's what we're operating in here is a extremely tight window, the likes of which no one has really ever seen before in this league.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a different approach than other teams are taking, but hey, different approaches might work. I guess we'll wait and find out. Now, I got the chance to speak to Eric Francis about the Flames side of things, and one of the maybe question marks surrounding the Flames is the goaltending. Who starts? What's the rotation look like? Who's going to take that ball and run with it? When you look at the Jets' stability in net, does that maybe give them an edge, an advantage?
I think it's a massive edge, and I think the question for a lot of people is how is Connor Hellebuyck going to come out of this thing? He didn't have access to ice and had said to me earlier in one of our at-home chats that, it was really the longest he'd gone without being on the ice in a long time. What he was doing to get through that is he was watching old games, the kind of stuff that we were playing the entire time. And he was trying to put himself in the mindset of those goaltenders while they were playing those games and kind of ride the emotions that they would be going through as those games were unfolding. He said that he came back to camp and it was a really, really important exercise for him because he said basically any other camp he'd be getting in and he'd be starting to do the mind work to get going. He says for him, that's got to come before the body. He said by doing that and watching all those games, it allowed him to basically walk into camp with the proper mindset and now just start working straight on the physicality of it. He says it's working for him, and he's usually the kind of guy who knows his body really well. The other thing I like about him is he gets the Vezina nomination. You wonder how that's going to affect a goaltender, whether or not they're going to say, hang up the mission accomplished banner and then not have as much motivation. I liked his answer. He basically said, I'm going to take time to savor this and enjoy this. It's something I set out to do. I pulled it off, and I want to enjoy that. But at the same time, I want to use it as fuel going forward. I want to go through these playoffs and have everyone looking around saying this was no fluke. This is why that guy was a Vezina nominee and very possibly the Vezina winner at the end of the season.
Now, the Jets and Flames are two teams who like to play stingy and aren't afraid to crash and bang and kind of play the defensive side of things. But when you look at star power, we're talking straight scale, high-end talent. Just how do these two teams stack up?
I think this is another area the Jets have a really big advantage. I mean, you got goals like crazy with guys like Patrick Laine and Kyle Connor, two guys who don't know what it looks like to get, to fall below that 30-goal line in a regular season. You've got Mark Scheifele, who, is the kind of guy who would be on a Team Canada roster by the time we get to the Olympics. You look at Blake Wheeler, it was a slightly down year for Blake Wheeler, but you're talking about a guy who's maybe been the premier assist man in the game over the last couple of seasons. And that's not even talking about guys like Nick Ehlers or Cody Eakin and what he's able to bring to that second line. I think that is, goaltending, I think, is the biggest edge the Jets have in this series. But when it comes to star power, when it comes to guys who are game breakers and just the volume of game breakers that you have, I think the Jets have a real advantage in that regard.
Well, Shawn, thanks for taking the time and doing this. And I think this is the all-Canadian matchup that we're all pretty fired up to and excited to see and watch. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime, Shawn.